good afternoon, good morning, good middle of the night, whenever you're watching this program on NBCTC or on YouTube. And welcome once again to another scintillating episode. I've got to come up with a new word. Another brilliant show of Porch Talk. I, of course, am Paul W. Marino, and my partner over here, to my left and your right, is the good Rabbi, is Eugene Michaelenko.
Dressed in 19th century garments.
Amen.
Thought it looked historic for the Halloween.
Yeah, I was going to say that Halloween is over while you're still wearing that silly mask.
There's a Halloween party at the
But then I remembered,
tomorrow.
That's what you always look like.
Right.
Ooh, ooh. Well, Joanne, if you can get over your chuckles over that, would you please put the photo in front of us? Oh, I bet everybody is happy now, as both of our viewers. The question tonight is, who are, or rather, who were these ladies? It looks to me as if the photo was taken in the North Adams Armory, and they were a very particular bunch of ladies, a basketball team, but whose basketball team? And if you want the clue, all you have to do is read what's on their blouses. And if you can come up with an answer or even a wild guess, give us a call at 664-4408, and you will have bragging rights for the next 2 weeks.
I like how they're posed. They all have their legs crossed at their ankles, very ladylike, and they've all got their hands folded over their...
Unless they're holding basketballs.
So it's a good photograph.
Yes, indeed. So, again, if you know who these ladies were, and I don't want individual names, just whose basketball team they were, give us a call at 664-4408 for 2 weeks of bragging rights. All right, Joanne, would you... there we are. Ugh, I keep forgetting that's what we actually look like.
I know, eh?
Ugh. How do you keep your beard neat?
I comb it 100 times every night, and I oil it. I trim it. I love it. I'm like a teenage girl with it, fixing my hair.
Please don't give me an opening like that. All right, so we were looking at photos of North Adams last time. So Joanne, would you please put the photo in front of us? There we go. This is Eagle Street, probably circa 1890. And notice the sign there that says Berkshire Monumental Works. When George Fair's father bought the company, this is where it was, off of Eagle Street. And the next year, George was born.
He was that old? Yeah.
Oh, yes. Yeah, his father came here in I believe it was 1915, to build the Clark Vault.
Oh.
And and when that was done, he was tired of traveling all over the place. So he saw Berkshire Monumental Works was for sale, so he bought it and settled in North Adams.
This is the George Fairs, who was later ran the Historic Valley Campground?
I don't think he ran it, but he had a lot to do with planning and implementing it.
Oh.
They were thinking of naming it George Fair's Campground, but he was dead set against that. And instead, they named the road in George Fair's Way. Now, on the right, on the extreme right, you can see a little bit of the Baptist church. Beyond that is, of course, well, it doesn't say so on the sign, but that's where Jack's Hot Dogs was and still is. It was started there in 1915, which means it's been there over 100 years.
By the same guy, Levanos?
Yes.
Oh, the Levanos
Yeah,
family.
his grandfather.
Oh,
So, and upstairs, over that, I believe it was the second floor, is where my Uncle Jimmy had his sign painter studio.
really?
I remember there, after he died, going up there with my father and one or both of my brothers to clear out the studio.
Oh,
Beyond that, well, the building now is wood, and it has clapboards on it, and it's painted red. And then beyond that is a little building that looks like a house, a 3-story house. Those buildings were all part of an undertaking establishment. I believe the undertaker was in the house-like structure, and then in the other building, on the upstairs anyway, pardon, there would have been a showroom and a manufacturing room because they were also in the furniture business. And on North Church Street, there's that house that has the stucco covering on it. That church, well, that was the original Baptist meeting house. And at this time, it was the repair shop for this undertaking establishment. Beyond that is the Tower and Porter block. They were plumbers. And 2 weeks ago, I was telling Eugene a story about that. I forget what year it was, say 1910, thereabouts. I just stumbled across this entirely by accident. 2 little boys were on their way to school, a 10-year-old and an 8-year-old, and a sidewalk grating collapsed under the 8-year-old, and he dropped 15 feet down an air shaft of the Tower and Porter block.
on Eagle Street or on North Eagle?
North Church.
Oh, North Church, on North Church.
And his brother stayed close by, alternately shouting encouragement down to his brother and shouting for help. And in due course, the fire department arrived, fished the 8-year-old out, and he was unhurt but declared he wanted to go home. I can't blame him at all. I'd want to go home too.
That must have been traumatic.
Yes.
Back to that Baptist church with the stucco. Have you ever heard the story that that was actually originally down by Hodges Crossroads?
It was not.
Okay, so that's another building.
The first congregational meeting house was by Hodges Crossroad. But then they started building another one at the corner of Church and Pleasant Streets. And what happened after the American Revolution, a wave of religious apathy swept the country. And the meeting house was left unfinished. That is, no doors, no windows. The floor was just planks laid down but not nailed down, and the pews were rough wooden benches. But it was still very evangelistic. Well, that's not the right word, but anybody who wanted to worship there could.
Interdenominational.
Yes, thank you. Very interdenominational. And then, after those 12 years had passed, a lot of evangelists started coming around. And the first evangelists that came to North Adams were Baptists. And the Baptists took it over, finished it, and put in proper pews. And then, when they acquired their piece of land on Main Street, they hired Jeremiah Colgrove to move the thing. And so he pulled the stumps out of Church Street, in effect making Church Street what it is today,
No.
and moved the building to there. And then when they were ready to build a quote-unquote proper church, they sold that to him, and he moved it to a position behind the church. That is one of 3 buildings in North Adams that can be dated to pre-1830.
Because the building that I thought it was built down there, Hodges Cross Road, and there's still a churchyard there.
Yeah.
And that was supposedly, well, it is the original first congregational church. And Samuel Todd, who came here from Connecticut, and they were hoping that he would bring his congregation here. And he married, his daughter married one of Israel Jones, who was the son of one of the proprietors. And they lived happily ever after. And that was, Israel Jones was a loyalist, while all his siblings and his uncles were all royalists. Not loyalists. Okay, they were Tories.
Yes.
And then, so that churchyard is still there. I remember when they were building the new personal storage units, that people were worried they're going to be invading the cemetery. But I guess they did
not.
And there's still a plaque down there, isn't there? A big
Yes,
plaque
there
on a bar
is.
on the side of the road.
And
that
the
says like that?
last time that the Congregationalists had it taken care of, it was done by a group of Boy Scouts, and they actually cut a road up to it.
Oh, up to the cemetery?
Yes. And they did a fine job of resetting stones, and they actually uncovered a stone that predates what until then was the oldest stone.
Oh, lucky them.
Yes,
Junior
indeed.
archaeologists.
And then something terrible happened. A member of the church, for no adequately explored reason, decided these stones ought to be marked. And so he went up there with some fluorescent orange paint.
And spray painted?
Spray painted every one of the stones that he recognized as a stone. So, of course, that had to come off. Thank goodness he did not notice the oldest stone. That went unmolested. And the Boy Scout who was in charge of the project was very ticked off about it.
Right. As he should be. What was the other thing? I forgot. There's a plaque
While
there.
you're thinking of what to say, I'm going to point out the building behind the Tower and Porter Block. Tower and Porter Block here is 5 stories tall. And there is the Flatiron Block. Now, of course, it's not the Flatiron Block. It's one of 3 that still exist in North Adams. And when this photo was taken, it was one of 4.
There were 4 Flatiron blocks in North Adams?
Yes.
What were they?
Well, one was the Clark Wholesale Grocery Company.
Okay, so that's down by the railroad station.
Yes.
Okay.
That is now gone. Another is when you go over Route 2 toward Williamstown, you cross a kind of a half a bridge, and there is a big block there that, excuse me,
What'd you have
Pardon.
for supper?
oh,
Never mind.
didn't have it long enough ago. So at any rate, there's a big block there that's a good 3 stories tall, but look right by the bridge and you'll see it starts and gets thicker as it moves back.
Oh, I know the building you're talking about. Yeah, after K&M Motors, just by
Yes,
over
just
the little
past
tunnel,
them.
next door to the little tunnel.
And the 4th building is Building 6 in Masmoka.
Oh, okay, you're right. Yep, I know that Flatiron.
All right, so this Flatiron was actually built in a couple of sections. You can see there's a taller section there, and then there's a lower section where the actual Flatiron part is. And beyond that, that steeple that you see there, that is St. Francis,
The church or the school?
the church.
What happened to the spire?
Well, I
that-
don't know, but that's definitely the belfry there.
I remember the school having a sort of a square tower on top of it. Do you?
Yeah, on the front.
I mean, that was torn down. I can't remember when that was torn down, but I remember as a child, and it was an auditorium for St. Joe's High School.
And it was also used as an annex.
Uh-huh.
All right, moving right along. You know, all this has taken us 20 minutes.
Eagle Street is an amazing street in North
Oh,
Adams.
yes, it
so,
is.
I remember the whole study was done on it. I remember when I worked on the North Adams Historic Survey, there was a man who did lots of research on this street. And that it's preserved, that it hasn't, well, hasn't changed since
Well,
probably
we
the
lost
1850s.
one important building.
Yeah, that was a beautiful one,
Yeah,
too.
it was falling down, and so they rushed in and demolished it.
It was a gorgeous Italian building.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think I managed to have the stonework above the windows saved.
Oh, where is it? Where is it?
It's probably at City Hall.
Oh.
Now, what I have in mind is I would have liked to salvage some bricks from that building as well and use them to build some chairs in that little park
Oh.
and then cap them with the stonework from above the windows.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
All right. Now, something else that was here was we had a Chinese laundry for many years, which I believe was in the older part of the Flatiron.
We used to have quite a few Chinese laundries in northern Berkshire. Adams had at least 3 of them. One on Summer Street, one on Center Street, and one on East Maple.
Oh, what happened to them?
I think a lot of them made their money and went back to China. I know one of them was involved in an opium raid. I think one of the sons of one of the owners had a little opium den, or was using opium. And of course, after they found it in one Chinese restaurant, Chinese laundry, they went and searched all the other Chinese laundries to see if opium was there, and it wasn't. And I think the last one, probably, I know someone who remembers it being there in either the early 30s or the late 20s. And it was where Burnett's shoe store was on Summer Street. Well,
All right, let's move along here.
You didn't want to talk
Oh,
about?
you remember Molly's Bakery?
Oh, definitely. Is
Yeah,
is
Molly's
that
was started by one of the Mazza brothers, and allegedly he named it Molly's after his girlfriend of the time.
Oh, bad mistake.
Yeah, and I remember when I was little, I'd go in there with my mother, and we'd actually go in the back and visit with him.
Oh, that's a
And
loss.
he lived to be 100.
Wow. M. Daly Cigar Factory is another great business that we don't have around here anymore, cigar manufacturing. And I asked if that was, he's the father of Catherine and, what was her sister's
Mary.
name? Catherine and Mary Daly, who were famous in North Adams. The Daly sisters.
Yes.
And I thought they originally grew up on Center Street, so.
Yes, they did. And when
So which would be in this
when
neighborhood.
the urban renewal struck, they moved their house up onto a hill.
So they moved houses here. Well, now you talked about two places that got moved. In Adams, we have record of, I can't remember the number, it keeps growing, but we have a record of like 48 houses that were moved. Either by, well, one of them was, some of them just wanted to move them. Some actually moved down from Stafford Hill. Some were moved because of the flood control project. Some were moved because of the urban renewal project. But I think that there was somebody in town who had the tools and the know-how, and was just offered anybody who wanted the house moved, he would move it. But we, 45, and there's two of them, houses that were actually moved twice. And there's two buildings where they actually cut them in half. They were too big, and they moved the two houses, the houses, two pieces together, and then reassembled them on a new lot.
Yeah, we have one of those here in North Adams. It was built on Main Street, and it was purchased by Ammon F. Davenport.
Oh, yes, I know
And
that
he
building.
cut it in half. One half was moved one day, the other half the next, and they were put together. He named it Sunnyside. And then when his creditors came calling, his business partner ducked out
Oh,
and left him holding the bill. So he had to sell the house and moved into the top floor of his professional block. And they stayed there until around 1900, when he had enough money to build a new mansion on Church Street.
and that house that was moved still exists. It's up of
Yes, it does.
Ashland Street, between Ashland and Church Street. It's sort of hidden up a little hill way. Yeah, I know that house. It's a nice looking place. All right.
And the barn is still there. It's on the corner of Corinth and Davenport. It's an apartment block now, but it still has the original roof on it. The cupola, ventilation cupola, is now gone. What a pity. All right.
Next slide. We should move on here. Yeah.
Now, this is, show off. This is Edward Richmond Tinker, Sr.
Is it Richmond?
He was a son of some of the town's earliest movers and shakers. He was the last son born to, Zilpah and,
Giles?
thank you, Giles Tinker. He actually had a brother, an older brother, who was named Edward Richmond. He died at 2 years old. And then 6 months later, this fellow was born, and he was given the same name,
Oh,
which was a common practice at
it
that
was, yeah.
time. Good thing he lived to adulthood. He lived into his 80s anyway. He was said to be a walking encyclopedia of North Adams history. And that is where I picked up the phrase to apply to myself, a walking encyclopedia. I would love to get in a time machine, go back in time, and spend a couple days talking with him.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure. Okay.
If anyone out there has a time machine you want to test, let me know.
Now, in the North Adams Hospital, there was a huge plaque in the hallway.
There used to be.
Okay. It's gone? Where is it now?
Yes, yeah, they were taken down, and I believe they were being stored in Mass Mocha.
Okay. But it has, one of them was a tinker. I'm assuming he was
Yes.
a large benefactor.
His younger sister.
Oh.
When their parents died, he was 11 and she was, I'm tempted to say 6, but I don't really remember off the top of my head. So they were immediately taken in by their aunt and uncle, Edward and Betsy Richmond. And ER eventually inherited a number of businesses from his uncle and from his father's estate, including a gunpowder factory in Clarksburg. Now, his sister got married to a, oh, drat, I can't remember his name either, but he was involved in textiles.
Can't help you there.
Yeah, well, she went out to Rochester, New York, with her grown daughter to visit her sister, Maria Sibley.
Oh, siblings.
Yeah, she had married Hiram Sibley.
Oh, yeah.
They moved out there, and they became stinking rich.
Well, Hiram Sibley is the founder of Western Union, the telegraph company.
He's a co-founder of it.
Co-founder, right, yes.
He also helped to co-found, what's the big university out there?
University of Rochester.
No.
Rochester Institute of Technology.
No.
Hamilton.
It'll come to me. At any rate, they became stinking rich, and so the ladies were out there visiting, and as they were getting on the train to come home, she took ill and died rather suddenly. So her husband gave a large donation to the North Adams Hospital in her memory, and it paid for another addition to it. Now, ER he had a lively interest in politics, but he was not interested in running for office himself. He only did that once. When Houghton became mayor, Houghton was spending money hand over fist. He was paving streets and building schools and building bridges, and ER thought that was a bad way to do things. You know, he thought we ought to grow more slowly and within our means. So he ran against, the second mayor was...
Wilkinson.
No, he was the third. First one to die in office.
Oh, congratulations.
Katie.
Oh,
H. Katie. He ran against H. Torrey Katie and lost. However, he did influence a great deal of goings-on in the background. For instance, he earned the moniker E.R. Boss Tinker
Ooh.
because of the influence he had on Beacon Hill when they were trying to get money for the Hoosick Tunnel.
Oh.
He knew that was a good idea, and he helped to engineer that. Another thing he helped to engineer was the nomination of Abraham Lincoln for president.
Oh.
When Lincoln was running,
That's right.
Mr. Tinker was he was an alternate delegate to the Republican National Convention, and he went to the convention anyway. The thing is, former Governor Seward of New York was the favorite to win the Republican nomination. But he did not believe that Seward could win a national election, but Lincoln could. And party loyalty being everything in those days, he went to Chicago, and once the debate started, he went down on the floor and pitched his woo to the swing state voters. And that's what turned the tide and brought about Lincoln's nomination. And they later on became good friends. He is also credited with getting Grant nominated for president. Grant was running against a man named Sherman who absolutely hated Grant. And now, by this time, E.R. was living in Washington, D.C., where he ran a wholesale grocery company. And one day, a man came to him and said, "Did you know that Sherman is going to St. Louis, which is where the convention was?" He said, "No, I didn't." And he marched straight off to Sherman's office, sat him down and told him, "Look, do you want the Republicans to win or lose? Well, if you go to St. Louis, you'll split the party down the middle, and the Republicans will lose the election. You stay here." And so he did. The other guy, and Grant won the nomination, and he later found out that Grant had sent the messenger.
What messenger? I lost
That came and told him, "Did you know that Sherman is going to St. Louis?"
Oh, okay. So, okay. You mentioned Abraham Lincoln and this upcoming election. After Abraham Lincoln was elected, the southern states started to secede. They did not, they didn't want Abraham Lincoln as their president, and they went and started their own, the Confederacy. So what will happen if Kamala gets elected? You think the states will secede?
I don't think so.
Okay.
As one of our producers said when Trump got elected, "Well, now that he's elected, you have to give him a chance." Oh boy.
He had
So
his
when
chance.
Kamala gets elected, we'll have to give her a chance. Now, E.R. died in 1915.
Wow.
He was brought back to North Adams and buried.
Wow.
And then in the 1920s, his grandson, E.R. Tinker II, who had become stinking rich on his own account, his father, Giles, started in the undertaking and furniture business, then went into insurance, found North Adams too limiting a field, moved to Boston and later New York City, where he, quote unquote, rose to the top of his field. One of his brothers was also living in New York City, running a wholesale grocery company. The eldest brother worked with his father until the Clarksburg factory blew up. Then he went to Ohio and manufactured gunpowder there for a time. He did some work out west as an Indian agent. And then he moved to Washington, D.C. and worked with his father. And in 1918, he retired, came back to North Adams, and died in the Richmond Hotel.
Oh, what a way to go.
Yes. Now, in the 1920s, E.R. Tinker Jr. got together, pooled resources with his father and his uncle, and they built the Tinker Mausoleum. We don't know how much it cost to build, but probably at least $25,000, probably more. It has a fabulous bronze bas-relief covering the glass door.
Yeah.
And it has a gorgeous stained glass window in it that probably came out of one of the Tinker houses.
Why didn't they just buy one separately? Why did they take it out of their house?
I beg your pardon?
Why, they could have afforded their own. They didn't have to take it out of their house. Anyhow, is this the mausoleum that you see on Route 2 just after Brown Street? It's not too far up the
Yes.
street. It's right up on the hill there. Not too far from that little thing that says that has 1865 on it, right? It's just right up
Yes.
there. Yeah, I remember that mausoleum. Yeah, it's a sight to see.
So he bought 6 feet of the lot in front. And, well, of course, everyone who was in the ground was exhumed and reinterred in the vault. That 6-foot piece in front of the vault, neither family, the owners of the original lot or the Tinkers, could bury anyone there, but they could plant decorative trees or shrubs. That may have been done at one time, but I don't ever remember seeing them in my lifetime.
Yeah, I don't remember.
He is also the one who set up the Tinker Charitable Trust, which would pay annually $10,000 to the North Adams Hospital,
Is it still in?
$6,000 to St. John's Episcopal Church, and $4,000 to the city. That money earmarked for the care and upkeep of Hillside Cemetery, though all he really cared about was the area around the Tinker Vault.
Is that fund still around? Is that still?
Yes, it is.
Oh.
And it's a strange thing because it didn't start paying out. He died in the 1950s, and it didn't start paying out until 1978, which is when his widow died, and all that was left of her estate went into the Tinker Trust. And it was measured in the thousands at that point. Well, the people who are looking after it have been taking really good care of it. Now it's up in the millions.
Oh, good.
Yeah, a descendant of Giles and Zilpah Tinker went up there and were not happy to find that their headstones had fallen and broken, and they wanted to put a tablet there. And so they got in touch with the Tinker Trust and asked if they could have some money to put a tablet there. Well, the people of the trust had despaired of ever finding a descendant, much less being contacted by one. So they paid for the whole thing.
Wow.
And if you go up there today, you can see that tablet set in the ground.
All right, we should go
Yeah,
on.
there's only 18 minutes left, or 17.
Did you skip one?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
This is titled Noon at Drury Academy, and I love this photo. These boys literally doing what they want to do, being little kids.
I thought they were playing marbles, maybe.
That could be.
They've got those great hats. They look, Nowadays, the kids would all have baseball caps. Mm-hmm. Are any of those buildings still around, you think?
Yes, the brick one in the back is an apartment house.
Still, okay. And that's on East Main Street?
Yes.
Okay. And are they wearing knickers? I think they are.
Yes, they are. That's what little boys wore.
Up into the 30s, I've got pictures of my father wearing knickers.
Somewhere I have a photo of a small boy wearing his first pants. And he has pants that go from his waist to his ankles, and he's standing there smiling, and he has this weird hat that only a mother could decide looks great on him. Wouldn't surprise me if it got him beaten up a few times.
And now everybody wears jams, which are sort of shorts. They're not really, knickers were more form-fitting. Jams are sort of baggy, but they're all, end at the knee or, long shorts. So the styles come back.
Now, this says a street in the rear of Drury Academy, and you can see Drury Academy up on the hill there. This is actually, botheration. This is actually Willow Dell.
Yeah. Are any of those houses still there?
The ones on the left, probably. The ones on the right, no. That's a parking lot now.
And they were probably taken away when the flood control project came. Or they got
even before the flood control came.
They were probably swept away by the flood.
Yeah, I
Because
remember.
Willow Dell always got hit bad by the flood.
Yeah, my father told me about a man that lived on Willow Dell. He had just finished paying off his mortgage when the flood came and carried off his house.
And I always liked that name, Willow Dell. It just looks so classy and artistic.
And again, kids playing in the street. I remember playing in the street.
Right.
Of course, we knew enough to get out of the way when a car was coming.
And there weren't that many cars in our days, and here they probably had to worry about carriages or horse-drawn wagons, and those didn't travel fast enough. But do you think they're playing some kind of ball game? I don't. They're all
looks it.
They're catching a ball in the air.
Yeah, if this bush wasn't in the way in the foreground, I think we might see a bat in that boy's hand.
Oh, maybe, yeah. That does look like, a possible baseball configuration. And I love it, the big clothesline on the left. Mm-hmm. No clothes, though.
Yeah, when the Porches was going to be built, they published a book and showed some samples of urban blight. One of them was a clothesline on the porch. How is that blight?
there are places, housing complexes, housing subdivisions in California where when they were trying to save energy and people wanted to hang clothes out instead of put it in the dryer, the housing associations wouldn't let them hang the clothes out because they thought that was unsightly.
Oh, boy.
Well, you don't want to see people's, underwear and their unmentionables hanging on the
Well,
line.
it depends on how you feel about them. Now, something else I can point out in this photo is the hill that Drury Academy was built upon. It was originally a good deal higher than that. When the two doctors acquired the property to build Drury Academy on, they had to cut it down 17 feet to get a lot large enough to build on. And then they cut it down another 17 feet to build this one. What they uncovered was a log that they figured was deposited there by a post-glacial flood. And the thing is, they also surmised that the entire hill was built up of flotsam and jetsam thrown up there by the river as it roared around that curve.
Oh. We have two sort of hills, even actually three, that were reduced and taken away. One of them was called the Biscuits because they said it looked like a biscuit, and it became a sandbank. And they basically took all the sand out of it and lowered the hill and eliminated the hill. That was located off of Bellevue Avenue in Adams. Another one is on Valley Street. That there was actually, Valley Street coming up from Columbia Street by Walgreens was actually a valley because there were two hills on each side, and then they're all sand, made of sand, so they kept on taking the sand out of them. And now they're level.
That was selfish of them.
Yeah.
It was probably a good area for sledding.
I can even think of another one too, behind McAndrews King. That used to be a big hill, and you can see how they carved into it and took away. And the last one is Hospital Hill, behind C.T. Plunkett School, which is now the Hoosick Valley Elementary School. When they built the addition to that, they were required to have a certain amount of space for a schoolyard, and they needed to have the extra part of that back there, so they cut out the hill, but they took that hill and they filled in the mill pond in Renfrew, which is the Printworks Drive area, where behind 7-Eleven. So we've had all our hills lowered, several hills lowered in Adams.
So now there's no place to go sledding.
There's still hills, don't worry.
Well, I'm not really worried. I'm just concerned.
When was the last time you went sledding? When was the last time we had enough snow to go sledding?
Oh, a good
This is, yeah.
60 years, I think.
Yeah.
All right, now this is State Street,
That-
looking toward Maine, what's now American Legion Drive. And this is pre-1890 because this building that you see in the foreground, rather in the background, with the flat roof, that was replaced by the Sullivan Block, our city's first 6-story building. Though anyone who remembers it today will remember it as a 4-story building, because when the Wilson House Hotel burned, no loss of human life, by the way, the hotel was burned out, the theater behind it was burned, and the Sullivan Block was gutted. And when they rebuilt it, they just cut off the top 2 floors and made it a 4-story building.
Now, Is the Universalist Church on this street? Is that we saw in the previous show?
If it is, it would be out of sight.
Yeah, it's
on the
tucked
right.
in there. And what about was there a fire station, a firehouse on this street? I don't see that.
Yes, I believe
It's
this
closer
is
to me.
it here.
Right there. Oh, okay.
Yeah, and the police department, of course, was right behind it. However, there's a couple of important hotels here, too. This is the Richmond Theater on the left, behind the tree. And over here on the left is the Mansion House.
Oh. Nice mansard roof and a mansard capped. Oh,
Yes.
I can now see the steeple of
Yes.
of the Universalist Church peeking up.
Oh, I was getting dizzy there.
I know. I hope our viewers don't have an epileptic fit.
Oh, let's see here. Do we have any more?
Now this.
Go ahead.
So before Hadley Overpass, State Street was what got you to, kept it going, become
going.
State Street that we know today. So, okay. So then they built, but they had to cross the railroad tracks.
And the river.
And the river, okay. So the railroad tracks was an impediment to traffic. The trains
One
came
of my
through.
favorite photos is we're looking down State Street, same direction, and there's a train going across in front of the camera.
Oh.
Now, this is the observatory. It says public park, which is not really true. This tower was built by the Baker Rose Sanatorium, which is over on the far right.
And
When it was first pointed out to me, I was told it was the killer cure, where they would either cure you or kill
Okay.
you.
And it was treating alcohol abuse, wasn't it? Alcohol
Any addiction
Oh,
could
any
be
addiction?
treated there.
Rehab, it's rehab.
Kill or cure is a mispronunciation of Keeley cure. Dr. Keeley was a doctor who developed a method of treating addictions, which included going out and getting fresh air and so on, and which is why they built the tower there, so their patients could climb up and look out over the city.
And the Killicure, Baker Rose, whatever building is still there up on Kemp
Yes,
Avenue.
it is.
It's
It's
apartment
now
building.
an apartment house.
And the Kemp Observatory is Kemp Park, right? Do they still play baseball up there? Is it still
Yes,
a public
they
field?
do, but I don't think there's a tower of any kind.
No, no tower, but I know there's a field, baseball field, isn't there? And it's next. After that comes Sullivan School. Is that on the other
That's
side
right.
of Kemp? That Mass MoCA has announced that they're going to take it over and use it.
Be wonderful if they could.
Yeah, it was in the newspaper.
I don't understand what's wrong with it as a school, except it was built on the edge of a cliff.
There was a famous murder there. Remember that back in the 70s,
No, I do not.
where a man hatcheted his wife.
Ooh. No, I'm
look-
going to have to look that
Look
up.
that up. I was in college when I got the newspaper, and Randy Trable took a picture of her leaning against the car, bloodied. Look it up.
Well, we have about 3 minutes remaining. So, Joanne, let's go to us again.
Please and
Thank you
thank
very
you.
much. And we have not gotten any calls at 664-4408 with guesses, even wild ones, about who these women were behind us. So I was going to ask you, but you already know. Actually, why don't you explain? Put it in front of us, please. Thank you. So who were these ladies?
You can see right in their jackets, their silky jackets, they're some Sprague workers.
Yes, this was the Sprague
Women's basketball team. Because they wouldn't let them play football.
I'll bet if there were enough women that wanted to play football, that they probably would have had a team for them.
The question is who they played. I know they had some women basketball teams in Adams. The Polish Roman Catholic Union, St. Michael's Hall on Summer Street, they actually had a team that they went to the National Polish Roman Catholic Union basketball tournaments. We've got pictures and programs of them playing out in Chicago against other women's teams.
Well, they may have played against a team from the YMCA. They may have played against teams from other mills, but then what would be the point of having the basketball team? I expect there were other women's teams around.
And the vintage, what do you think this is, early 40s?
Oh, this is 1930s.
The 30s, yeah.
Yeah, Sprague had, put us in front again, please. Thank you, Joanne. Yeah, Sprague had just about every type of team you can imagine. They had bowling teams, they had...
Curling?
Curling? No, I don't think so. But they had basketball, baseball, football.
Hockey? No, they didn't have a hockey
They even
arena.
had a gun club, and RC gave them a space in the Beaver Mill to use for a shooting range.
Oh.
So I see by the old clock on the camera, try to figure that one out if you can. We are just about out of time, so thank you, Gene, for being here.
My pleasure.
Oh, and Paul, thank you for being here too. Oh, you're quite welcome, Gene. Thank you for directing Joanne, and thanks to you for tuning in. We'll see you in 2 weeks here on
Porch Talks.